This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Rock and Roll Denim, Bill Fick Ford, the Wcra, and Resistol. Are you a rodeo athlete looking for new ways to earn money? Well, the World Champion Rodeo Alliance, that's the WCRA, is all for rodeo, and you can be too. How does the WCRA work, you ask? How do you earn the money, you ask? Well, you start by nominating any event you are going to participate in prior to the performance start time. You can nominate literally anything with publicly verifiable results. Team ropings, jackpots, 4D barrel races, rough stock events, whatever. Basically, any rodeo event counts. As long as the event has public and verifiable results, you are eligible to earn WCRA points. These points will help you earn a spot at the WCRA leaderboards for qualified WCRA major events. This includes the $1 million Triple Crown of Rodeo bonus. How do you start? Go to the App Store or Google Play, download the WCRA app on your mobile device. If you already have an account, hit nominate. If not, hit register and create your account. Select your discipline and dates for your ride or run. Verify you're nominating the current segment. Confirm your payment. Now it's time to complete and earn the point. The WCRA team will track your results, and points will be awarded if and when you place and earn money. Nominate today by visiting WCRArodeo.com or the WCRA Rodeo app for event information. Guys, another year has ticked by. Challenging year, but there was somebody you could rely on if you needed a new Super Duty pickup, and that was Bill Fick Ford. Once again, the #1 Super Duty dealer in the entire country. You guys have seen what's going on in the car business, in the truck business. You're seeing trucks being sold for thousands above MSRP. Well, if you go to Bill Fick Ford, it doesn't matter where you are at in the continental U.S. He will take care of you. He will stand by the product, and he will not take advantage of you. Guys, Bill Fick Ford is the only place you can go in 2022 for a no-bull discount. Bill Fick Ford.
What sets Resistol apart is the legacy of the cowboys who wear the brand. These traditions are passed down from fathers to sons, from heroes to future champions. Since 1927, Resistol has been handcrafting the finest American-made cowboy hats. Generation after generation, we live it every day.
This is The Gauge with host Chance Conradu.
Are you freaking serious? It's Conrado. This is The Gauge, and I am Chance Conrado. On this excellent episode of the podcast, we have got Wylene Wilson, a.k.a. Extreme Wylene. Gets crazy, gets a little psychedelic. This is an excellent episode about manifesting and all the great things that go along with being a positive thinker and a bunch of woo-woo stuff, which I love woo-woo stuff. Check it out. I like that cowboy hat.
J.W. Brooks.
Yeah.
It's called, it's like the Wylene special because it's like double smoke. We call it the Gruyere. And it's had a little wear and tear on it, you know.
Oh, so that's not... See, I would see that coming right out of the box just like that.
No, when I originally got it, it was just gray, like a dusty gray, and then just over time, I just wore it down till there was nothing left.
Yeah.
And everybody wants one, and I'm like, well, 3 years of...
It really looks like something that you could just buy.
Everyone, yeah, they definitely want that, but
Yeah.
it doesn't happen.
No.
Yeah.
Well, I'm super duper stoked you're here. So something interesting I thought I would mention, when I first started doing this show, it was kind of meant to just be like a relaxed, funny, haha thing. Well, for the last couple months, I've really changed the show completely. It's completely different than it was. Our world is so freaking negative and just filled with like almost hatred, and the way that the Gauge is now going to operate is bring the people in who can offer the most value, whatever that means. So good energy, positive vibes, whatever we can get to like give people the most bang for their buck, even though they don't pay to listen to this show. We don't need a lot of jokes and laughter, and it's okay to do that in this current world we're living in. We need impact, and you're very impactful. That's why you're here.
Thank
So
you.
I think the best way we could start the show, or any show, is just have you introduce yourself and kind of start there. Tell us who you are, and then that just leads into boom, 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 and then it's going to be an hour and a half, and we'll be like, what the hell happened?
Okay, fantastic. My name is Wylene Wilson. I was born and raised in Mesa, Arizona. My family owned and operated a flower shop, of all things. My grandmother started a flower shop in 1927. It was the first flower shop in the state of Arizona. And in the early 80s, the family decided that they were going to sell the property and like move away. And so they had several greenhouses in the back portion of the property, and the property fell out of escrow. So my mother and her brother, who both lived on the property, were like, well, what are we going to do? You know, and my mom's like, well, I'm going to tell you what we're going to do. We're going to build a barn, and we're going to have a boarding facility. And he's like, but we have greenhouses. Like, we can't chicken wire this together. And she's like, yes, we can. And so in 1985, after like this huge loss of not selling the property and then having to come up with something as a solution, my mom put an ad in the paper that said this: we're not fancy, we're fun. It's a do-it-yourself place, and come one, come all. Like, that was kind of how we were raised, and our mom was just so great at, again, the positivity and the support and also the teaching of, you know, horsemanship and everything. So that facility kind of up and came out of nowhere. It just popped out of nowhere. The house was like on Main Street in downtown Mesa. Like, it was, you would never know it was there. It was kind of hidden. And in a year or two, 100 boarders occupied that space. Over 100. And so we had a nonstop revolving door of horses, people, and every kind of walk of life came in and out of those doors. And my fond memories are at the barn with my mom and a lot of friends and people that we grew up with. So we were really fortunate. And I think as a young kid, you don't realize it, you know? I didn't realize it until I was much older. So horses kind of paved the way for my life. I didn't know they were going to at the time. And at a very young age, my mom had us riding and handling horses like at speed at a young age. And my sisters and I were always horseback, have always been involved with horses from a young age. But our mom really studied and worked a lot with Monty Foreman, who was really kind of popular back in the early like 60s, 70s. And at the end of his life in the early 80s, he passed away from diabetes. So he kind of, there wasn't much that was covered on him. You know, this is before iPhones and information and everything. And so he kind of just like fell away and nobody really knew. But my mom loved Monty. And in her early 20s, she was approached by him and he was like, look, I'm going to teach you how to ride and handle horses. And so she took it on. And then she raised 6 kids, and we were a huge part of the community and involved in a lot of different things. And my mom and my dad were both just like amazing coaches and could do anything. So yeah, I don't know. We just had a really cool childhood growing up, and we were able to be exposed to so many different types of horses and disciplines. And we were fortunate, very, very fortunate.
Yeah, there's so much horsemanship that came from Monty Foreman that most people don't realize it came from him.
Thank you for saying that.
I was super lucky. Like my dad, same thing with us. Everybody knows that. But there's a lady named Becky Mahoney.
Oh, yeah, I love Becky. Oh, my gosh.
She used to work for Monty. Becky is the one who taught all 3 of us, me and my 2 sisters, our horsemanship. And then
I did not know that.
When I was in high school, I rode colts for a lady named Donna Ackerman, who also rode with Monty.
Okay.
Yeah, her and Becky worked for him back in
Okay.
those days. And she does reining horses, and of course Becky does what she does. But yeah, so I got to work for a lady who learned from Monty, and then of course Becky taught all of us a lot of horsemanship. So it's a small world.
That is such a small world.
A lot of
Wow.
the stuff that people do on the ground right now, or if you're figure eighting horses, that's where that shit came from.
Yeah, it's true.
And people don't know that.
And that's where the balanced ride saddle came from, because Monty kind of came from the English background and was like, look, I'm a polo player and I want to jockey horses, but he would get in the Western stock saddles in the 50s, and he was like, I am in the wrong position. Like, this is a counterfeit riding saddle. And it's like, I can hear my mom saying it right now, and I know she'll be really glad to hear me say that. But she loved Monty and his philosophy. And in my opinion, he was way ahead of his time. And then he passed away. I think there's a lot of people who kind of geared their whole entire careers after what he did.
There's a lot of people who took credit for it.
Yeah, absolutely.
He did not.
And he was the first guy to be like a traveling clinician and to film. And so he would film all of his riders. And then in the evening, they would sit back and they would go through each of those riders, and they would show through film where your position was and why you were in the incorrect place and how the horse...
In the wrong lead.
And the wrong lead and the footfall and all of that. Yep. And so... And my mom used to say, Monty's method, like the basic handle, was the quickest, simplest, easiest, most humane method from beginning to end. It takes a horse from wild to mild.
Yeah, it's a weak process.
Yeah, you get in, you get out, you get things done quickly. And I was really grateful for that, because I think growing up as a young kid, like I just have a vivid memory. I'm just going to share it. I had a little pony that was kind of a runaway. And I remember her saying one time, all right, now if he gets out of control, just remember to go up the mane, down the rein. And this horse ran off with me. I mean, he was pretty bad to run away. And I remember there was a parent there on the sidelines, like yelling at my mom, how dare you put your daughter on this runaway pony? And my mom goes, oh, listen, my girls ride. They can handle the speed. And that is true. At a very young age, we knew how to handle horses. And that's something Wynda and I talk about a lot, that nowadays I feel as though there's some of that horsemanship is kind of forgotten, because everybody starts on the ground and they want to be perfectionists on the ground. We weren't raised that way. We were like, get in, get on, let's go. And my mom used to say things like, the horse needs the leader. The horse is looking for the guidance, and they need adventure, and they also need movement. And movement is how you really teach a horse.
Yeah, forward movement.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we were all about going forward and fast.
Yeah, I mean, you think about those things as a kid, because, I mean, my dad put us on some rank sons of bitches.
Oh my gosh, me too.
And I remember like running 9-0, because of course they're barrel horse trainers, to a first barrel, flying off, and then having to get back on, and people were just like, these kids are 6.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Yeah, so.
But there's not a horse that can scare you if you start like that.
Mm-hmm. And honestly, the biggest key, and I say this everywhere I go, in any clinic I teach, every horse I ride, every horse has to have an emergency stop. And that's not by pulling on them. It's actually by completely doing the opposite. It's actually not pulling on them. It's teaching them a cue that says, hey, by the way, we have a problem. You need to slow down. Let's transition this speed down to a smaller, slower gear. So I was really grateful to be raised by that influence of Monty. And I never knew Monty. So part of me wishes I could have known him now. But my mom had a deep love for his philosophy, and it was like gospel to her growing up. And I think of all the times we stayed up in the barn late, and I would watch my mom work with people and these junker horses, and like all the experience we had. And now looking back, I'm like, man, I was so fortunate. It was so much experience and knowledge and just practice of everything that came through the doors. We tried to apply it and tried to make horses better, tried to make horses happier. And along the way, you discover yourself and you figure out what works for you.
Yeah. And then the root cause is actually that those horses make you better if you let them.
Oh my
Especially
goodness.
real shitty horses.
Absolutely. And not just that, like horses truly are, they're the teachers. And throughout my whole entire life, I look back and I always give credit to the horses. I mean, at the time, I think I was not as near as appreciative as I should have been. I should have been better, but we're always progressing and trying to grow and be better, right? I mean, I was.
That's what's so great, right? Because you can listen to something like this and you don't have anything to do with a horse. It is so applicable just to life.
Yep.
Whether you're starting businesses or you're just trying to progress in a traditional linear path in life, you can take conversations like this or things about that and convert it to where it helps you in your life. And that's why this is so valuable. So you did that, your mom was a big influence, and then you started doing some really unique things with your life, really unique out there things, not rodeo like your sister. I mean, because she did that path, and that's a whole different world than what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And so interestingly enough, I grew up barrel racing too. I mean, we gymkhanaed, and every weekend my mom loaded up us girls in like our Suburban and our 4-horse stock trailer that was powder blue, baby blue, and this thing was ugly. And they'd be like, oh, here come the Wilsons. It's like, because they knew we'd pile out on a bunch of sale barn ponies and we'd go whip some butt. I mean, we didn't play around. I mean, it was, and it's not because our mom or dad put the pressure on us, but she used to say things like, all right, you get out there and you just, right before you walk in the gate, you say, sports fans, watch this. She was just, she loved rodeo and she loved horses and she loves teaching. And so I was really fortunate for that. But it wasn't always about winning. And I think that it was one of the most valuable lessons I ever learned from my mother was you got to have fun. If you don't love this, I tell everybody this in clinics and everywhere I go, I'm like, if you're not loving this, change your hobby.
Yeah, you don't have to do it.
Yeah, why do it? Why put yourself through this misery? People let a horse eat them out of house and home, and they're trying to prove the point that they're salvageable. And I'm like, you realize it could be a lot better, a lot easier, a lot funner. So just bringing the fun back to competition and the sportsmanlike conduct. I mean, it was always supportive. And if you didn't win something, what did you learn? And how how do you do what's right by the horse, So once I started there, and then in my 20s, right after I graduated high school, I went to school for massage therapy. I've always loved body work. I've always loved that kind of stuff, massage, Reiki, that kind of thing. And then I got married when I was 20. I had 2 kids by the time I was 25, divorced that husband, and then got introduced to the Extreme Cowboy Racing Association through Craig Cameron. And that's actually how I got the name Extreme Wylene. I was at a show that was in Arizona, and I had a little mare there. Her name was Black Widow. And I had 15 rides on her. And I showed up there, and I'll never forget Craig. Because Craig and I are pretty close, and I'm really grateful to him and his influence for the Extreme Cowboy races, because I liked to go fast, but I also like to get things accomplished. It's one thing to go fast, but if you can't have purpose behind it, then what's the point? And so I remember one time he said, all right, you're going to come through this obstacle course, and you're going to blow through here, and then you're going to run down, step off your saddle, get off your saddle, move these bales of hay, get back on, run over here, go over there, do this, strip your saddle, and get on and do this. And so as soon as he said, you're going to take your saddle off, I was like, oh yeah, we're going to take the saddle off. We're going to get wild and woolly. Because I was like a wild Indian as a kid, bareback. And so was Winda, so was Juanette. And so I went to this Extreme Cowboy race. It was the first one I ever did. He said, go fast. And I mean, I don't think I've ever been that fast since, but 15 rides on this mare, and she went everywhere I pointed her. In fact, she went so fast I forgot one of the obstacles, and that's why I didn't win. But when we had to load our horse in the trailer, I was running wide open. And I checked her down 3 strides before she jumped in the trailer. I grabbed onto the back of the trailer, and she jumped in, and my feet hit the ceiling when she jerked me off of her. And Craig was like, woo-wee. He's like, damn, girl. He's like, are you okay? He's like, you were like a runaway bullet. You're extreme. And then he's like, you're Extreme Wylene. And that was it. It stuck. That name, Extreme Wylene, stuck. And I really had a great time within that association. I traveled, and I put horses to the test. I used a couple of Mustangs in the Extreme Cowboy races. And then as the Mustang makeover, kind of the inception of the idea of it with, I know Patty Colbert was like, I really want to start this because we have all these wild horses. What do we do with all of them? How do we help them find homes, instead of just a random person walking off the street and paying $25 for a horse? How do we find purpose for these horses, and how do we impact them? And so they started the Mustang makeover. A friend of mine just suggested, like, hey, you should look into this. And I thought, well, they're not going to let me in. Like, there's no way I can get involved in this. And so I applied, and lo and behold, they accepted me. And so the first time I drove...
Why did you think you couldn't get in?
I didn't know. I think I think in a way, I guess I figured, well, maybe I don't have the right facility. And they had all these requirements. Mm-hmm. But once I actually signed up, I realized how easy it really was. And when I went to pick up the first horse, they loaded up this one horse that was like wild and crazy. And I remember there was a film crew there from a certain news station. And this horse is like striking and kicking in the trailer. And I'm over there like, oh, this is going to be so much fun. And he's like, what's wrong with you? And I said, I was once this horse, lost and scared and just needed direction, right? We all need that. And so it was my job to give him that option and that opportunity. Well, then the guy from the BLM comes riding over. He goes, hey, you're not going to take this one. He's got a bad left hind leg. I'm going to send you another one. So he sends me another one. We go pick up this Mustang. And I get him in the trailer, and I thought, man, this horse is sure nice. Like, he's really good. I drove him home, and I worked with him for like a day. I rode him the next day, like 48 hours later. And I remember thinking, I think the Mustangs have a bad rap. There's a lot of them that perhaps, needed a voice and needed a chance. And sometimes they're not the prettiest to look at, but they got a lot of heart and a lot of try. And so that horse really opened up my eyes to what they could do in a short amount of time. And within 2 weeks, that horse had been in 10 states. He was completely body clipped, and he had went with me to the national finals of the Extreme Cowboy race when I was in Missouri. And I took him through the entire course just after everything was over. He did every single obstacle, and I'd had him for 3 weeks out of the wild. So I'm always looking for that shock and awe value. If I can take something and someone says, that's not possible, that stuff turns me on. I'm like, what did you say to me? You said I couldn't do that? Okay, well, I'm about to show you that I can. And through my own demise and all the crazy things I've done in my life and all the lessons I had to learn, horses were really what brought me back every time. Horses always made me laugh. They made me cry. They taught me something. And I didn't know, and I had been riding and coaching and kind of teaching sort of before then. And then in 2009, I ended up getting another Mustang, and that horse changed my life. His name was Filthy Rich. And I remember one time somebody said to me, well, why did you name him Filthy Rich? And I said, well, one day he'll be rich or I will be. I didn't know, but I knew he deserved a chance. And he was just a Roman nose, little cute little thing, probably 14 hands. When I picked him up, he weighed 700 pounds.
Oh, wow.
When I took him to the show, he was first in the class for the body conditioning and handling because he was 880 pounds, and I put the feed to him, and he blossomed. And that moment I realized this is the true purpose of what the Mustang makeover is. It's giving them the best feed, the best training, the best experience that they can, so you can go help them find
treating them like a real performance horse.
Like they just need a chance, and allowing them to go find their forever home. And I mean, going into it, I always made my mind up, like, I can't keep this horse as much as I want to, but going into it, I always knew, you know what, I am really grateful that I get this opportunity, because every horse would teach me something I didn't know about myself. And I got humbled a lot, and I learned to slow the hell down, and I learned it wasn't about me. And I learned that the hard way. And I'm really grateful to that. And anybody who knows me knows I'm always trying to evolve and change and grow and do things. And the Mustangs allowed me to kind of showcase my ability, but I also showcased them. And it was kind of a win-win. And then in 2009, when I participated in the documentary Wild Horse, Wild Ride, things just got crazy after that. And it allowed me to do what I was already doing.
Yeah, explain what that was. I mean, 2009 might as well have been a lifetime ago for a lot of the people who are listening, young people. True. So explain exactly what that is, and I'm sure there's somewhere people can go watch it. But
yeah, absolutely. So, the documentary was released 2.5 years after the film was done, and then we promoted the film on a film tour for a while, and then it finally got picked up for. Is
that you, Ty?
Oh no, it's everybody.
Oh, it is. Tornado.
Fantastic. Sounds like my kind of party. No,
add it to the rest, right? Yeah. Well, some of the people who are listening be like, yeah, I was real close to that tornado. Yeah, I guess it's in Weatherford.
Yeah.
Add it to the list.
Well, the premise with the Mustang makeover is this. They give you a random Mustang. It is a kind of a random draw. At least this was the first premise. You get a wild Mustang. You have 100 days to train it, prepare it, teach it. And then you have to go to a competition where you showcase the trainability and versatility of an American Mustang. There are 3 classes that they run. It's pretty simple. The first class is body conditioning and handling. They start off with that. So that's essentially, have you taken care of your animal? Have you maintained them? Have you fed them? Are they fit? What do they look like? How's the muscling? How's their hair quality? What do their feet look like? Those type of things. And then they have a rail class, which is essentially like the versatility class, like pleasure class. It's walk, trot, canter on the rail, stop, reverse, back. It's pretty simple. However, the simplest classes can turn out to be the most advanced, especially with a wild horse. And then the third class is the trail class, which is where you kind of separate the cream from the rest, because, we're opening gates. We're dragging things, we're crossing a bridge, we're backing, we're jumping. So, but I really like a challenge with a horse. And so I always would prepare the horses the best way I knew how. And if you imagine a wild horse stepping out of the wild, coming into the BLM, they separate them, they're branding them, and then they're specifically picking the horses that might get overlooked. I mean, if you think about the little BLM horses, it's normally the buckskins, the palominos, the paints, the duns, the Grulias that are down the road in no time.
Lookers. The
lookers, yeah. Everybody's like, ooh, I want the pretty, paint horse.
Yeah,
but the bays, the sorrels, yeah, the bays and the sorrels and the black horses don't really have a shot. And so this was just a way to give them almost a voice, if you will. And I really felt aligned with that purpose and their whole mission statement of what they're trying to do for the horses. I feel like it's a really great program. And there's been so many incredible things that I've been a part of because of Mustangs. And I was a quarter horse person through and through. Let me just be really clear. I AQHA world showed since I was 12. So I was kind of snooty in the beginning towards the Mustangs, but very soon I learned they're actually pretty cool little horses. And I've done more with a wild horse than I have with a domesticated horse all day long. I've done crazy things with Mustangs, and they'll do it because they have a heart and they know what it's like. They know what it's like to be hungry. They know what it's like to be thirsty, and they'll walk 30 miles one way for water. And our domesticated horses that are born into a barn, and they have these perfect pedigrees, you can take them out and ride them and work with them, and they're so finicky. You know this. You could stick them in a padded room with 8 vets, and they'll die right there. But you can take a Mustang and try to kill it, and it'll keep on going. It's got 9 lives, and it'll just keep on rolling.
You know what's funny is, I mean, once again, we can literally remove the word horse, and we're talking about people.
Oh my gosh.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, that is the quintessential version of what like other motivational speakers talk about with people. You know, you start with nothing, you are nothing, and usually those people are the ones who achieve the most because they never had the silver spoon or the golden spoon or, you know, whatever it is. And then you end up with some of the most accomplished people from the most humble backgrounds. It's interesting because I bet, including me, I probably thought about a Mustang like 3 times. It's probably because I was watching one on a movie.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's really interesting to have somebody here talk about those horses because they don't have a voice. In our world, in the fancy room that we're in, this is the first time we've ever even talked about Mustangs.
Yeah.
How sad that is.
The Mustangs really, you know, I really enjoyed them, and they've changed my life, truly. And as of right now, I've competed in 14 Mustang makeovers and had always been a finalist. That was always my goal, was just make the finals, Wylene. Because I don't know how many can say that they did, and then my second goal was to always make sure that they had the best training, the best knowledge, the best experience they could, and then to go find their home. And there's only been 1 or 2 that I've kept intentionally. And the year that we did the Mustang Million, which is in 2013, that little horse that I got that year, that horse changed my life. His name is King of Hearts, and I still have him.
Yeah, what is that? The Mustang Million. I mean,
so the
like
Mustang
there's
Million,
$1 million up for grabs.
There was that specific year. They pulled together a bunch of money, and it was $200,000 to win the show for these wild horses. Wow! And they also won a pickup truck. So they won a brand new Dodge pickup truck, and then $200,000. It was $100,000 for second that year. It was $75,000 for third. Wow. Yep. It was $50,000 for fourth. I think that year I walked away. I was 6th that year out of 200 and I believe 4 people in that class. And that year they tried to adopt like 1,000 horses, and they had all these different locations to pick up from.
Okay, so they're not selling the horses; they go out for adoption.
Well, they do run an auction at the end of the competition, and so, but that year, you had to purchase the Mustang you wanted to compete with, and it was your horse. You didn't have to sell it that year.
Really?
Yeah. And so you could buy, I believe, up to 2 or 3 or maybe even 4, but you only could show 2, I believe. And so there were several people that showed 2 horses. I just showed one. And that year, myself and a few others were involved in a little like mini series that was on Nat Geo Wild. And so that kind of just gave more exposure to the Mustang makeover and the premise of it. So that was kind of cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, it was fun. And, you know, there was a lot of coverage. And then they've always morphed and changed things with the makeover. And we've seen some pretty incredible things happen with Mustangs. And not just that, but the camaraderie and then the relationships and the networking that's happened from it. I could have never guessed what that would have done for my life. Like, I feel so humble and grateful. And, you know, I want to make sure I mention this. I have learned so much about myself, and I've learned, maybe the hard way, that it's not about you. And the minute that you recognize who you are, what your gifts are, and you stay authentic, and you don't chase anything. You're not chasing a title. You're not chasing the money. You're not chasing the accolades, but you chase being better for yourself, like really wanting to improve deep down. That's when my life changed. And I think horses really humbled me, and they became my teachers. And I was really grateful for that. Really
yeah.
good.
Yeah. We should hone in on that a little bit, right? Because
absolutely,
like the message there, you've brought it up a couple times that, you know, a certain way that you may have been before these changes. What was that? You know, was it an ego? Was it
totally an ego?
The typical kind of thing that we all go through when you start accomplishing things. You start thinking that, oh, I've made it. You start looking around and you have this attitude, and people come to you and you have this, I made it. You don't listen to other people. Maybe you think you know it all. We all know those people. We've all been those people.
Sure.
And I think that's where you're going.
Yeah.
which abolishment of ego is like one of the most valuable things any human, accomplished or not accomplished, can do. And it's probably the hardest thing.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but I've seen a lot of people die that I loved who never figured it out.
Yeah. And so I'm really glad you said that, because that's exactly where I am in my own personal life and in my own journey. I had always wanted to write books, and I've always wanted to motivationally speak, and I've always like wanted to do that, but I was really fearful about speaking my truth and being able to like say and do things I wanted to say and do. And, you know, it's not so much that I had an ego and that I was super cocky. What it was is I was confident. I was always kind. I was raised to be kind. Our parents were very loving and supportive, and we were very fortunate. And I am grateful. I'm so grateful to my mom and dad. And then my mom used to say things like, well, you're the top writer in the nation. You know, she really pumped us full of like words of affirmation. You're so beautiful. You're so talented. You can do this. Anything's possible. And so because of that, I went in, and then the first Mustang makeover I ever went to, I showed up riding my Mustang around. He was bridleless. Like, I had broken this hand 2 weeks before, and I showed up and I was like, well, I'm going to just ride him around. And I was thinking, he's not ready. He's not ready. And we got to the competition. I was walking around. I'm like, we're all right, buddy. We're going to make it. Like, it was such a huge accomplishment, because at the time I didn't know what to expect.
Right.
And let me tell you, I came back the next year prepared, and I think everybody who's done the Mustang makeover, those who are watching, who are listening, those who have watched it probably go, I could do that. And then they really practice and watch and do the research, and then they come prepared. And if you get the right horse, it can be your year. And my thing about the Mustang makeover was the camaraderie between the participants and all the people that were involved. And in no other association was it like that for me. And, I grew up rodeoing. I grew up in the horse community. But I remember specifically there were times where I maybe didn't have a piece of equipment, or I needed a prop. And someone's like, hey, what do you need? I got it, Wylene, no problem. So that camaraderie, and I feel like it brought together a community of people who were maybe trying to get on the map. But the horses are trying to get on the map. So it opened up that door. And I feel as though with the trainer incentive program, even for those individuals who maybe want to train a Mustang, but they don't call themselves a professional, but they love the horses and they want to gentle them and find them good homes. That's a great program, because you get paid to find these horses homes. And then all you have to do is essentially teach them to lead, pick up their feet, and they have to load. And if you can find them a home, it's anywhere from $700 to $1,000 a head. And there are people that have made thousands of dollars through that program. Sure. And which they should, because we need to find these horses homes,
Yeah, I mean, there's so many of them out there.
Yeah.
I don't think people realize how many.
Yeah, there's a ton. And I've had a blast with them. I really have. And some are talented and some aren't. It's just like any breed. And my focus when I would go into a makeover would be like, I wanted to know who the horse was. And some years it wasn't about winning. Sometimes it was just, I want to be stronger at this, and I want to be better in that class, and I want to find this horse the right home. And man, it's been a wild ride. But just I'm so incredibly grateful. And again, a lot of life-changing, like a lot of morphing and evolving and growing and changing, shifting. So,
guys, Rock and Roll Denim has absolutely changed the game when it comes to the performance and style in Western jeans. Top competitors like Shad, Tim O'Connell, Shelly Morgan, you name it. Your boy right here. We're all wearing Rock and Roll Denim. Inside and outside of the arena. It gives you the flexibility you need to win, as well as looking absolutely great in your interviews, appearances, whatever it is you're doing. Even when you're just doing podcasts like me. I had a chance to go to Rock and Roll Denim's factory the other day and pick out all the pants I wanted. Here's the thing. I got to try on a bunch of their new jeans. I love the men's Revolver jeans with the Reflex Stretch technology because they're comfy. They're not stiff like some of the other jeans. Go check them out at rockandrolldenim.com or follow Rock and Roll Denim on Facebook and Instagram for the newest trends in Western fashion. rockandrolldenim.com.
Root and Rome is an integrated marketing agency focused on creativity and collaboration. Founded by Stacy Dudley, this woman-owned business is headquartered in Comanche, Texas. Stacy's vision for Root and Rome and its clients has propelled the agency to the top of the industry. Analytical artists skilled in advertising with a keen eye for the digital details that make a big difference. They're unlike any marketing agency you've ever met, and their results speak for themselves. With a portfolio that ranges from regional businesses to Fortune 500 companies, Root and Rome designs marketing strategies that make your brand stand out and rise above the rest. Whether you're just developing your business or looking for new ways to create an impact, Root and Roam can help. Take your brand to the next level and create something big. Visit rootandroam.com today to learn more. Root and Roam, the full-service marketing agency focused on your success. Connect with Root and Roam at rootandroam.com today.
Yeah, so I'm really interested. You were talking about like a lot of spirituality, and it's funny because I'm looking at you and you really remind me of my sister Paige a lot. But
you remind me of my older brother.
Yeah,
so
that's what you said.
When I started listening to your podcast, I was like, he's just like my brother. And I felt very like connected in the sense because I had always wanted to start a podcast myself, but I was terrified. It scares the living shit out of me. I'm going to be honest. It scares me. And the reason it scares me is because people have an idea of who I am. But people really don't know me. And so when I started it, and I just started it like a week and a half ago, it's called Confessions of a Cowgirl. And it's the things that I want to speak about are all the things I've always wanted to talk about, but was afraid to. And I realized I might lose friends and people that I love. But at the same time, I'm like, it's my truth and I want to help people. And deep down, I've learned it's not about me. It's not my gift to keep. It's my gift to share. Al Dunning taught me that. And through just time and life and marriages and, just all sorts of things, I fell down a lot, but I always got back on and I never quit. And that happened not just in Mustang makeovers, that happened at Road to the Horse. That happened in life. And that was my TED Talk. Just don't quit. By damn, get tough and like grab your boots, pull them on, get your lid on and grit your damn teeth and don't be a damn quitter. Like just get on and go. This horse needs you. And like, so I was kind of geared that way. And I didn't want to be the one that somebody said, oh, I remember her. I wanted them to go, I knew Wylene and she was genuine and she was real. But on the outside point of view, if I'm on a platform, people automatically stereotype me because I'm a girl. And I'm a blonde, and you name it, I've heard it. And so I've realized through the years of doing what I do, there's always a target on your back. And all you can do is be the best you can be. And I realize that what people say about me or anyone else for that matter has nothing to do with me. It has to do with them and their life and their projection. So the spirituality side of it, I've always been spiritual. And I was raised in a very religious household, and about 5 years ago, I stepped away from organized religion. And the reason I did is because I had so much guilt and shame and body shaming, which is crazy. You would look at me and go, God, you're so beautiful and you have everything going for you. I didn't think I did. And I was terrible to myself and tortured my body in a way, not like you would normally see, but just more the self-talk. And so I wanted to shift that and I wanted to change that so I could help other women and other people who struggle with their own image of themselves. And it's not like I was necessarily like on this path of, I know everything. And it was almost a quiet study of how do I find peace again? And how can I learn to just be alone with myself? Or what am I spending my time doing? And how am I educating myself? And so a lot of things have happened in my life in a very short amount of time, but it's all the things I've always wanted to do. And the life that I guess my mom and dad were trying to prepare us for, we're prepared. And now I feel like I have all the tools that I need to handle that. And it is lifemanship. That's my word. It's not horsemanship. It is lifemanship. And everywhere I go, I realize this. I am actually a people teacher, and the horses are simple. The horses are fun. I love the horses. The horses are easy. It's the people that are difficult.
Horses are linear. People are not.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's really, really true. And I think that's why, like, some of the most amazing people that you find they use words like, socially awkward, phrases like socially awkward or introvert. I love that word. Because anybody can be an introvert just on any given day or any given crowd. It's actually a terribly misused word, like narcissist. Everybody is a narcissist at some different
So everyone's selfish
point.
at some point.
Actually, in every day, you're all of these things,
yeah.
Right? So these therapy words, they don't fit, right? They're just these little different hats that you put on at different times, sometimes throughout your day. And it's really damaging, I think, to overuse those words. But yeah, I mean, what you're saying, it's 100% right. But horses aren't like that. Like, you can use a general statement for an entire species of a horse, but you can't do it with people because every person is different. Sometimes within 30 minutes, you'll see 5 different faces of the same person.
That is so true.
So you just can't generalize that. And the thing that people forget, I really want to touch on why you left organized religion. I really want to know that because I also did the same thing. I didn't leave God, never have left faith, believe all of that. It's just the people I don't particularly like. And every time I drive by a mega church that you look it up and you find out it costs $45 gazillion to make it, and you drive by downtown Fort Worth and there's like 50 or 60 homeless people. I'm like,
I know.
There's got to be a way, right?
Yeah, I agree with you.
But,
to all of everything you're saying, I know that you and I could spend hours talking about this, and this is why I wanted to start a podcast, because I'm like, I'm a cowgirl, but there's a whole nother side to me people don't know. They don't know I love to cook. I love to sing. If I didn't ride horses, I'd probably own a restaurant or a food truck. I love to dance. I love to help other people, truly deep down. And the reason I love horses, and you touched on this just a second ago, they live in the present moment. Humans live in the past and they live in the future. So we call it future tripping. You're creating a future that doesn't exist. So when I go in and show a horse, I visualize everything from the way the ground feels underneath my horse's feet, to the announcer, to the audience, to the smell. And I project that to my horse and I say, this is what we're going to go do. And it's a gift that I have because I have a lot of focus and I know what I want to accomplish. And I've been able to practice that quite a bit. And with horses in general, and like you were saying, wearing lots of hats, you have to be able to know when and when not to. And in the horse community, there are times I've had to pull the trigger and there's times I haven't. And there's just a fine line. And, you know, my dad passed away 5 years ago, just a little over 5 years ago. And he was already very sick. You know, he had a really bad heart and he'd had skin cancer twice. And so as his health started to decline, I watched him and I remember thinking, I had the most incredible dad. And, you know, anybody who knew my dad, he was incredible. And he was very sweet and very tender, very supportive. He wasn't a horse guy, but he loved us kids and he would have done anything for us. And I have a really good friend who I've used for 20 years. And he's an animal communicator. And I saw the girl that you had come on the show. I've listened to her podcast. Please tell me her name.
Catherine.
Thank you, Catherine. I'm into all that. I love it all. I was really skeptical in the beginning. Really.
I was so skeptical.
I was like, okay, wind chimes and Fruit Loops, whatever.
I was skeptical until she knew the paintings hanging in the area about the animal she was talking about. Like, get the fuck out.
Mm-hmm. And you know what else is crazy about that? Is I just like eat that stuff up. So here's my Cowgirl Confession. You ready?
I'm ready.
Every single Mustang I've ever trained has all had a reading from Rob. Mm-hmm. I would call him up, whether I sent him a picture or I just said, hey, I picked up a horse. He would be like, okay, it's this, and that. This is what the horse is saying. I had multiple Mustangs say, I want to go back to the wild. I had other Mustangs say, where have you been all my life? I've needed this. Finally, this food is amazing. Thank you for the shelter. Thank you for the companionship. I want to go find a new owner. I mean, everything in between. But it gave me a leg up. And so I was like, okay, there's something to this. This is I started with Rob years ago, and I would try to convince people like, hey, trust me, this is a thing. Like, there's a whole nother side of a horse that we don't know, we can't access. But he had this ability, and I thought, well, I'm just going to put it to the test. And that's how it started. So when my dad passed away, my dad came through in a reading. This is probably going to upset a lot of people. Again, Cowgirl Confession. My dad came through in the reading, and he said, it's not what you think it is, Wylene. So I was like, what do you mean it's not what I think it is? He said, it's just heaven. It's everywhere. And he said, I walked through a waterfall of light. Oh, it's going to make me cry. He said, I walked through a waterfall of light. And I said, okay. He said, I'm so grateful for the release of pain. And I was like, oh my gosh, pain, yes. You went through so much physical stuff. And my dad was like, no, Wylene, it wasn't physical. It was emotional. And it was like as though somebody hit me with a lightning bolt, because I went, whoa, wait a second. What if everything I've ever known or been taught, what if none of it's real? What if I have held myself over the fire and tortured myself mentally, physically, to try to be something that someone else wanted me to be, and I wasn't being authentic. And I was trying to fit in the box. I was trying to be the wife. I was trying to be the mother. I was trying to be the hostess, the cook, the maid, the computer specialist. Like, I tried to do it all. And I know a lot of people can relate to this. You get burned out, and then depression sets in, and you try to figure out your life, and you're like, well, why am I struggling with this? And I remember one time Rob said to me, he's my friend, that's the animal communicator. He said, you'll never find it. You're not going to find God necessarily in a building. You're going to find it in nature. Just take a walk outside, Wylene. Go be with the horses. Go do this, and you will find it. It will find you. That peace will find you. And I was always looking for peace in a building, in church. And I'm not going to discount all the incredible things I did as a youth with the church. Like, I loved it. I had a lot of great experiences. I can't fault it for that. But the structure of it, and just the belief that you're not enough and you're a sinner, that bothered me. And I got tired of hating myself over just things I had done that were just everyday things. And so I decided to change it, and I did. So I did. I stepped away, and I've never been happier. I have a life of peace. I have a life of happiness and love, abundance, gratitude. I come from such a place of gratitude now, when before I didn't. Started doing affirmations. Affirmations changed my life. I tell everybody that I coach, start now with, I love you. Start there. Look yourself in the mirror and say, I love you every morning. I love you. You deserve true happiness, and you deserve true love. And true love can be anything. It's not necessarily a relationship. True love to anything. Just deep connection to individuals, to families, to animals. That's what we want, And I wasn't finding that in church, even though I had amazing experiences. But it was the judgment and the shame and the guilt that people projected onto me. And I just didn't want to be around that environment any longer.
That's the issue, right?
Yeah.
Is one aspect of religion, not faith, not belief in God, not connection to God, is the business side of it.
100%. Thank you for saying that.
And
yeah,
it's been that way for centuries.
Yep.
Unfortunately. I mean, it has. And if you nerd out on being smart like I do, then you dive so deep into everything before you talk about it that you have such an understanding. It's off-putting to people, or whatever your perceived understanding is. But there's so much great literature out there, great people who talk about it, that you can really dive deep into it. And then here's the sad thing. If you try to question, not all, because there's some amazing pastors out there. I mean, there's
absolutely
amazing ones. But if you put some of them to the test and really push those word tracks that they preach for their whole career after they set their own salary and do all those things, there's no answers.
Yeah.
Now, it's not, should I believe in God? Like the real basic stuff, you know that when you're born. You just know that shit. You do. It's in you.
Yeah,
it's
you
there.
just know there's something bigger.
You know
right?
there is, and you can feel it in everything. I mean, you can feel it when you turn on the news sometimes, which sucks, but you can. But when you start asking these, like I won't say it on the air because I just don't want to offend people, but I'll say it to you later. There's this one question, and he'll probably know what it is because I've asked a lot of people that, because it just pops into your head. But there's some of these amazing questions that you can't answer with your 6-word sentence, your track.
That's true. Yeah.
Because that same sentence you're saying in 2022 with all this amazing technology, the same one they were saying in the Vatican 1,000 years ago or however long ago, none of that's changed.
Yeah.
So you create your business off of fear, longing, and disbelief in yourself.
Absolutely.
I don't feel like God wants that for us.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of religion just based around like guilt and shame, and that's how they keep you. They keep you tied to that. And then there's no real celebration. And I lost a really great friend a couple years ago. He was one of my best friends. He was much older than me, photographer, lifelong friend, like just an amazing guy. I met him when I was supposed to. He changed my life. He randomly just up and boom, he was gone. And I was devastated, more than I was when my dad passed away, because I knew my dad was sick. But to lose Charlie was like, whoa.
Came out of nowhere.
Right then I was like, and I remember doing a reading with Rob. I was so devastated. I was like, oh my gosh, please help me. And Charlie was not religious at all. He's like, you die, you go to the dirt nap. Like that was his theory. So Charlie came through in a reading 2 years ago for me. And he said, Wylene, imagine my surprise when I realized heaven was real. And then I was welcomed with open arms. I was like, oh my gosh, what? It's real? And you mean you were there? It was enough for you, and like you believe it. And he's like, it's all around. He's like, I'm everywhere. He's like, I'm like Charlie's angel. He's like, I'm with you everywhere you go, and you're not alone. Just know you're not alone. There's angels around you. There's things you can't see. You're not alone. And he said, please do not be sad. Celebrate. Have great food. Have great sex. Have great wine. Have great conversations. Have great everything. Don't be sad. Don't live your life regretting. Don't live your life wishing you had something else. Do everything you ever wanted to do. And so that was my promise to myself. Right when he passed away, as devastated as I was, he was right. He was still teaching me even when he wasn't here. And I went, you're right, Charlie. I should change that. And so I did. And I started to love myself a little bit more and be kind to myself and be kind to others. Because I realized the things that I was struggling with on the inside, I was projecting. And I saw that in my horsemanship. And I've gotten a lot softer, a lot slower. I was introduced to the Masterson Method, which is essentially like an integrative energy work, but you also do put pressure on the horse. And I didn't know how that was going to work out for me, but I saw astronomical changes in horses where I could physically pick up and adjust an entire horse's body. I've been doing that since I was in high school. I always loved body work. I've always loved energy work. I never really thought I was like a healer of horses per se, but I really was. I just didn't know how to harness it. And it was just allowing my hands to read the animal or the person and go, this is what your body needs. Like, I can tell you've got a lot of stuff stuck in here. Let's get that out so we can perform better or whatever. And so I feel as though that's why all of my Mustangs and other horses I've worked with, their body was prepared. I was mentally prepared. And that's why we were such dynamic duos in those competitions. But I had insight because I was using somebody who had spiritual gifts I couldn't access or possess. I've always been a believer in, and I would try to convince people to come and do the work with me because I'm like, it's amazing. And so I created a clinic called A Gathering of Angels and Horses. And it was me doing the horsemanship side, helping you be a badass in your confidence and know that you can do anything if you just release your fear and you have the tools. And then Rob in the evening would come in and he would validate your loved ones were there. We would talk about intuition, how we are all gifted with intuition. We don't believe it's possible because we're told it's not. Because religious leaders and other people are
Explain that more, the intuition thing.
Like the intuition is like your gut instinct. You know, you just have a feeling, or you're just like, I should call that person, but you don't. Or I should have woke up earlier. Or, you know, you just have this like, I should do this, but you argue with your higher self of, well, I can, you know, you go, well, then that's not really the case. But the truth is, listen to that little voice. Listen to your heart, listen to your gut. And so all the times of saying like, I know I have the intuitive side to me. I just didn't know how to harness it or like tap into it. The key is just getting still sometimes. I didn't know how to do that.
So the idea is that every time you have that, you should listen to it. Just do what it tells you.
Just don't question it. If you're like, you pull up to a stop sign and you're like, I should turn left, even though you're supposed to go straight, just go left and see where you end up and just go with the flow. Because sometimes things show up for you. And things aren't happening to you, they're happening for you, you know, and that I got really into podcasts and I've listened to several of the people that you've had on the show. I've loved the show. And I said this earlier to you, but my bucket list thing was to be on this show. And I actually called my sister and was like, you've got to be on The Gauge. You know, it's amazing. I love his show. And she's like, you know, I'm thinking about it, you know, and she's got a very busy schedule. I do too.
But she chose that. If you're going to pro rodeo and you win Fort Worth and you go do all that, yeah, you got to keep rolling.
Yeah. She's going. She's awesome. And so I just decided, you know what? I'm going to write this down in my journal just to see, just manifestation. I'm really big into this, by the way. Love it. I think everybody should do it. Just write stuff down. Write down your goals. And it's not just goals, it's growth that you want to create. Like the goals and the things that you've always wanted to do, you need to do it. And so I just was like, it's time. It's time to change things. Let's go. Now's the time. And so that with that intuition and saying it's time to do things differently in my life, I just started changing things. And here I am. And then then it's like, hey, come be on The Gauge. And it's like, what? I mean, a week later. So I'm just honored and grateful. I have so much gratitude. I literally have had such amazing things happen in the last year. Can we talk about Road to the Horse?
Please.
Yes.
I mean, I'm so into woo-woo stuff. And
You are into woo-woo stuff?
Well, yeah, I've gotten into it because...
Me and you are going to be really good friends then, because I am super into that
You just
stuff.
talk about all these things recently, and it's so funny because I want the whole world... Yes. That's the point of the show. The whole world...
language.
The whole world to listen to this for that. Because all of us, like everybody listens to specific people, right? Everybody in the world listens to Gary Vee. Cowboys listen to Gary Vee. Everyone listens to Gary Vee. Or find another person. I mean, there's all these different influencers that transcend different aspects of life and different cultures and subcultures. Mm-hmm. Why not this one?
I love that.
Why couldn't anybody in the whole world come listen to what you just said or what someone else has said and get the same value they would out of an NFL player or a billionaire or whatever? I think they should, because we're having deep, meaningful conversations that come from a lifestyle full of accomplishment, right? Full of huge accomplishment. It may not be $1 billion. It may not be a Super Bowl, but it's the same.
Yeah.
Right? Because you're choosing a path and you're excelling at it to the highest level, whatever that may be, which... Like, you don't have to know shit about a horse to get value out of this podcast.
Oh, that's
or
so
the
true.
last one, or the last one, or the last one. It just transcends culture. It transcends subculture, and that's what the show's supposed to be.
I love it. I love it that you said all of that. And I think my new big thing is I'm seeking out healing, happiness, and horses. I want to help people reach in and pull out their magnificence. I really don't like when people make excuses and they live in the past around me. I'm like, hey, we all have jacked up childhoods. Nobody's perfect. Nobody has it all figured out. However, you have to stand up and decide to put your pants on and go do something with your life. And it comes down to you. Nobody else is coming to do it. And I'm so glad you brought up Gary Vee, because last year, I remember one time, I'm just going to say it, here comes the F word. Gary Vee says, the day that you don't give a fuck about what anybody thinks, including your parents, is the day you'll succeed. Mind grenade for me. And I was like, okay. I mean, I can tell all the people, and there's people I don't care about. But if I was to tell my mother, like, hey, Ma, I don't go to church anymore. Oh, and I'm also not going to stay married right now. Like, I need to go do things for myself and focus on healing, really, truly healing. And when I chose to do that last year, it was the most freeing thing I've ever done. It was the scariest thing I ever did. And here's what's so beautiful about it. My mom was like, okay. Like, but, well, I'm sorry to hear that, and that just released so much of what I've been holding on to that I was so scared to share, that I was like, now I can breathe, and leading up to Road to the Horse, just to circle back around to the competition, I had been wanting to compete in Road to the Horse for over a decade, easily, maybe even before then, before the Mustang makeover. And I'd always been part of Road to the Horse. I'd been behind the scenes. When Jody and JW Brooks would have their hat booth there, I was there helping them with their hats. And everybody would walk by and be like, why aren't you down in that round pen? And I said, one day, and I'm a patient woman. I'm patient. I will wait. I don't care. I was like, I'll wait. One day, if it's meant to be, I don't want to chase it. I want it to come want me. I want it to find me, seek me out. So I finally got the call from them after they changed hands. And then when Tootie was no longer involved, then they came in with kind of like the new group, and they were like, we have to have you, Wylene. We love you. Like, people need to see you. And because I do a lot of the Monty Foreman stuff, it's not traditional and it's not really seen that much. So I was like, this is the perfect platform to just show people you can have fun with horses, but you also need to know how to ride and handle as well, and not make excuses. Because 50 years ago, nobody made an excuse for a horse. They had to be versatile and they had to get stuff done. It was like the kid horse that took you to school, it had to turn around and plow the field. And it was horses. We built this entire country off the back of a horse. I think we've forgotten that. And I think...
Oh, we've forgotten it.
Oh.
But we're starting to remember.
We're starting
now.
to go back. Like,
it's
now
everywhere in culture.
Now that gas
it's
is
amazing.
$6 a gallon.
Oh, yeah, no shit, right?
Yeah, I was just in LA and it's almost $7.
Oh, I'm headed there tomorrow. Yeah, $7.50 where I'm headed.
Yay.
For diesel.
Yeah. It's
looking forward to it.
Yeah. But and in those circumstances, I have to remind myself, Wylene, stay in your universe. Do what you love. Don't chase anything. Because if you focus on your passion, the paycheck shows up. And I've learned that, and I've worked really hard. And I started to say, if I could do anything or be anything, what would I do? And what would I write a book about? And what would I have a podcast about? And it was all the things that scared me to talk about. Again, the biggest thing was just spirituality, speaking my truth, talking about mysticism and like things that you can't see. And I was super into people that had gifts with horses. And so every competition I've ever done, including Road to the Horse, we were doing readings on all those horses to know what's the horse that I need to work with to help me. And so when I sat down with Rob, and this is back in 2000 and, right before the competition, I sat down and I had a list of horses and I knew I was going to be the last one to be picked. Isn't that weird? Intuition. I was like, well, I want the bottom of the barrel because that's what I'm going to get, and I'm like, well, I've trained Mustangs, so what's a 4.6's colt? Like, what do I care?
How bad can it be?
Yeah, how bad can it be? And so my theory was, well, if I go to the competition, I want to get something that's more running bred because it'll want to go through things, not back away like a cow horse. That was my theory. And so, so when I went to the competition right before, I made myself a promise. I looked myself in the eye and I said, Wylene, you're going to go, but you're going to be authentically who you are. For the first time in your life, you're going to be authentically who you are. And you're going to go there. And you're going to be an example because it's going to change people's lives. But in turn, it's going to change yours. I had no idea what was going to transpire after that competition. No clue. I think a lot of people were gearing for me to win and to do well because I was a female. And people know I'm fearless and I'm kind of crazy on a horse. And so when we got to the competition, Winda was my pen wrangler, who's been like my bestie, like ride or die, midnight rider, love her. And we used to break a lot of colts together. So she knows kind of how to get around and knows what to do. And so you need someone in the pen with you that knows exactly what your program is. So she was my pick for that. So we get started. And I remember telling myself, like, this is your time to do it. So that first round, after we picked horses, I ended up picking the big time battle horse. And he was race and bred, I think on the bottom side. All the good ones kind of got picked through. I knew they would. And my goal was just be smooth and just slow down. Like, you have time. And I kept telling myself, breathe, you have time. And the other thing was I never one time took my eyes and looked over the pen to see what someone else was doing, because that's how you get distracted. So I knew going into it, you're going in, you're going to stay focused. You're not a clinician today. You're a horseman. Your horse needs you. You have an hour and a half of real working time. Get to work. Like, go. You only have altogether, there's like 4 hours and 20 minutes altogether, something like that. So you have a lot of work to do because you're required to then in 2 days get them geared up, get them saddled, get them prepped to turn around and go do rail work. And then you have to do an obstacle course. Most horses wouldn't even dream of completing, let alone in 2 days or 3 days on a horse that's never seen anything like it. But that kind of stuff, like, I love it. I'm like, yeah, to me, it's the Super Bowl of, you think you're badass? Like, you think you can start a colt? Cool. Let's see it. And again, we watch it as armchair quarterbacks and go, oh, I would do that differently and I would do this differently. Listen, I'm guilty of that. But let me tell you something. When I got in there, whole nother ball game, and boy, does the time fly by. And all the things you thought you were going to do, you don't do. But the first 2 days, I flew through the competition. My horse was awesome. That second day, Winda went to move these noodles into the arena, like into the round pen, and he just saw it out of the corner of his eye or something, and it kind of triggered him. And after that, he kind of got unraveled a little bit. But he had a massive hole in his head, about that big around, on the top of his poll.
Really?
So he had been hurt, whether it was coming to the competition or after. But how do you monitor what goes on with the horses? Like, we're not watching what they're doing behind this. I had no idea. But he was extremely head shy, and he was already leery and kind of funny, very insecure, low man on the totem pole. Again, the runt of the litter and the last one to be picked, But I wanted to give him a chance. And I remember when I talked to Rob, oh my gosh, this is so funny. He said, you're supposed to get the number 4 horse. I was staying on the number 4 floor. He was in the number 4 buck and shoot. Like, all these 4s started showing up. And I'm huge into angel numbers.
And you thought 4th pick is what you were thinking when you said that? Man.
4th pick. And like, I'm huge into angel numbers. So I'm like, okay, this has to do with something. And Rob said to me, this horse is going to showcase you so the world can see who you truly are. He's your horse. And I was like, okay. No matter what anyone said to me that weekend, I was like, this is my horse. He's the one that's going to showcase who I am. And I was willing to let it show up the way it needed to be. So by that 3rd day, I was like so geared up and ready. And they had the first 2 competitors go in and and we were sequestered away. But that morning at 8 a.m., they inspect all of your equipment. And there's rules that they have applied to the competition. And so every morning they run through your equipment, make sure you don't have anything you're not supposed to have. So everything was there. My rope was dallied off to my horn. Everything what I needed was there. They put us on a golf cart, Linda and I, and they sequestered us away in a different building so we couldn't see or hear what was happening. So 2.5 hours later come, and they mic me up, and I run down the alley there at Cowtown, and there's the horse, there's my equipment. The saddle horse is dropped off. I called him Clay. They dropped him off, and they said, okay, are you ready? And I'm like, yeah. On your mark, and set, go. I took a big, deep breath, and I said, okay, let's go do it. Because all I had to do was go catch him. I had 20 minutes for my third round. Catch him, get a saddle on him, get him prepped so I could take him out and do the rail work and the final trail class. So I walk in there, and for those that watch this, I mean, it was like gut-wrenching, but this is life, and I'm so happy I got to be the example of this. Truly, if anybody can take the pressure and the heat, it's this chick right here. Like, I'm like, yep, bring it to me. Come on, hot chili peppers, let's roll. And so I roll into this thing. As soon as I shut the gate, I was like, I could feel it. I was like, ooh, he's not the same. Because he was so insecure. As soon as those saddle horses went down the alleyway where all the other horses were, he could not get his focus off the gate. I couldn't get him to look at me. I couldn't get him to leave the fence. Like, he was just not with me. So that went on for about a minute or two. And I was like, all right, I'm going to be gentle. I'm going to take my time with you. And then all of a sudden I was like, all right, we're wasting time. We got 20 minutes. Let's get you caught. So I walk over to my equipment to go get my rope. It's not there. And right then I knew I had lost. I was like, oh, well, get ready to be a shining example of losing the biggest competition of your life. I knew it right then. I truly did. And then I thought, I looked at Wynn and I was like, where's my rope? And she goes, I don't know. And I'm like, I don't know. Then what do? Now I'm in this round pen with this horse who won't look at me. I can't get 10 feet near him without that bubble. He was like, I'm out of here. See you later. And I could not get close to him. The audience wasn't helping because he was so fractious and he was already disconnected. He did not want to look at me, let alone connect to me at all. And I thought, okay, Wylene, take a deep breath, take your time. And for a long time, I tried to catch this horse. And there was one point, I think at the 18-second mark, I had my arm around him with the lead rope, and a lady goes, way to go, Wylene! And that sucker squirted right out from underneath me. And the whole audience was so pissed at her because I had him caught. I just couldn't catch him, It's fine. There's a tornado. It's okay. I just heard the thunder.
Safe.
We're safe. We got it.
Yeah, we're on a high floor. It's no problem.
Okay, fantastic.
This is where you want to be in tornadoes. Really high.
Really high. Yeah, totally. It's totally safe.
Sounds like a smart plan.
And so, and it was funny. So here's what happened. I don't have my rope. Thank goodness for Winda, the criminal who went and found it. She literally sneaks it under the gate at the Cowtown Coliseum. It's over here. So I'm like, I need this rope. I got to catch this horse. So I leave the round pen to go get this rope. Right there when I walked out the gate, it was a 50-point penalty for leaving. Oh. Then when I pulled my rope out, they're like, well, if you rope your horse, we're going to penalize you because you didn't have your rope with you when you started. And I'm like, but I did have my rope this morning. I don't know where it went. None of it added up at the time.
Right.
But what do? You don't have time to sit and argue about it. So I was like, okay. So finally get the rope. I rope him, catch him. I'm already out of time at this point. So they've never in the history of Road to the Horse ever had this happen. The energy in the room was like this right here. It was like you could feel everyone go, no, she's got to catch him. No, she's got to. Everybody watched the bathtub water just drain out. They knew I was not getting, there was no way to regain what I'd already lost. So I was already in trouble. And so I went, well, don't quit, Wylene. You have time. And I kept saying that to myself. You have time. Don't quit. Don't lose your character excellence. Be well, be good, be an example to this horse. He needs something. So finally get him caught, get him saddled up. He blows up and bucks right there. I climb on him and I'm like, all right, kick the gate open. So now they're into my 35-minute rail class and obstacle course. So now I'm already into that time. They've never had this happen before. I kicked the gate open and I'm like, well, I guess we're warming him up out on the rail. I had barely rode this horse out of the round pen, let alone more than 10 minutes anyway. So I get him going and I had trotted him to the right and left a little bit. But as I came around the corner, and nobody really knows this unless they spoke to me personally. True story. I love telling true stories. I come around the corner and I'm like, I picked up a trot and I was going to the right. He picks up the left lead Then he changes to the right lead, and I'm coming around the corner, and there's a guy working at the facility changing a trash can liner, and it makes that noise. That was it. And because of the Cowtown Coliseum, as you know, the fencing's high, but the walkway's low, so he couldn't see it, but he heard it.
But it was up there on that high point.
Boom, trigger. He cuts back left, and I mean, he's cut back real hard and took off. He bucked right across the tarp and took off at a dead buck, and he bucked all the way to the end of the arena, and I rode him from one end of the arena to the other. One stirrup was missing. His reins were sweaty. My reins were up to my boobs. I was like, I am so in trouble. Like, I was like, oh, what am I going to do? And I was like, don't lose your cool, Wylene. You're the best bronc rider there ever lived. And I mean, as I came around the corner, all he did was stop. It's not like he bucked any harder. He just stopped while I didn't have a stirrup. So I just went right over the dash, right over his head. I was still holding my rein, though. It's like,
so you didn't lose him.
I didn't lose the rein, didn't lose the horse. And the whole time, the clock's just going, and I'm like, great. He bucked me off. Great. You know, like all of it was just like, perfect. Wait a second. And then right then I was like, wait a second. This is happening for me. This is totally my TED Talk. This is exactly wait, I'm not supposed to win this competition. There's so much bigger. There's such a bigger thing happening right now. And then I was just like, just be on your surfboard, girl, because here comes the tidal wave. You know, like in my mind, because I've done so much self-reflection and worked on myself, I was like, there is always another show. There is always another competition. There is always another horse.
They're going to do it here next year. Same place, same time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so I straightened everything up, cinched him up, got back on. I was like, we're still going. Like, I was just really happy. I wasn't angry with him. He's a colt. He's a baby. He's never seen any of this. And there's a lot of pressure. And I always say by the third ride, you find out if they want to buck you off, you know. By that third day, you can kind of sneak a ride or two on them. But by the third day, you find out what you've had done. So get on him. Finish my rail work, walk, trot, canter, do everything. He does all of it. Get off, pick up his feet, do everything, get back on. I look up. There's 7 minutes and 49 seconds left to go through 10 obstacles. I swear to you right now, I was like, I can do it. I don't know why I felt that way. I was just like, this is happening. And I did not weaken. I just turned around. I was like, I'm declaring my obstacles. Let's go, Clay. This horse just put his nose down. He never hesitated. He walked to the first obstacle, the second obstacle, the tarp, the noodles. He never hesitated. The only thing he struggled with was the rope. I did approach, did try, couldn't get there, was running out of time. So I petted him, told him he was a good boy, moved on, opened the gate. But my goal that morning, when I sat there with Winda in the hotel room that morning, this was my intention. I want to kill it in the obstacle course. And I want to stand on that number 10 mystery obstacle and have my horse just stand there willingly. Like, I want to just kill it in the obstacle course, do it better than anybody's ever done it, ever in the history of Road to the Horse. Yeah, I did that. It just didn't show up the way I expected it to. But I asked for certain specific things, and I was given that. So you learn to get a little better with your intentions, right? It was like I learned a huge lesson. And as I sat there on the number 10 obstacle, the scariest one was the number 9 obstacle, which was like essentially like hoisting up a sail of a sailboat, but it was like a feed sack. And I'm like, this jackwagon is going to lose his mind. I mean, he's going to freaking hit the ceiling. He never did. I don't know how chance. He literally just was like, he knew he had to stand. It was weird. So I'm like, everything's fine. Nothing to see here. We're just hoisting up the old sails, you know. Then I turn around and I think I had like 45 seconds, 50 seconds left. I walk over. He just walks right up to that number 10 obstacle, stands right on it, just stood there. I was bawling my eyes out. My heart was so full of gratitude. It had nothing to do with the competition. It had nothing to do with me being the best or that I was some great horse trainer. It was about that moment right there that I asked for that morning. I said, I want to be on the number 10 obstacle and I want to kill it in the obstacle course. And I did that. It was a terrible beginning. Like, it did not show up the way I wanted. And then I went, Wylene, this is life. This is so life. Life's a mother freaker. It is a big...
You can say fuck on this show.
I know. Like, I know I can. Thank you. I say fuck a lot, actually. I try to be a lady.
I don't know any horse trainers who don't.
I know. You're right. I think those who listen to the show are like, yeah, just say it. And, you know, Clinton, he had it mastered with like 700 fucks. So it's okay. Thanks, Clinton, for making me look like an angel.
Yeah, Clinton almost overdoes it.
Yeah.
Yeah, he called me at like 7 a.m. I was just getting to the gym, and it's always, every time he calls me, "What's up, motherfucker?" I was like, "No, I'm not. No, I'm not." Oh, that's just
really
Australian.
a true story you want to hear about Clinton. I've known Clinton for 20-something years.
Yeah.
I met him before he was a big deal. He came to my house personally with my mother, watched me break 8 horses in a day. And he went, "I don't know who you are, but whatever you, please don't go mainstream." When I was 20 years old, he told me that. And he's like, "I've never seen anybody work a horse the way you do. Just like, don't go be big, you know." And we were friends for like a long time. And in a lot of ways, he taught me how not to be, but I'm really grateful to him. He's a huge example in a lot of ways. I know you know what I mean, but each of the clinicians, I know them all. They've all taught me things and what not to do.
Yeah.
And I call that being the trifecta. Can I share that really quick while
Absolutely.
it's on my mind? The trifecta is, there's a horse trainer on every corner, right? You can find a horse trainer anyway. But it's hard to find a horse trainer who's a good teacher. You might find a really great horse trainer, but they're a terrible teacher. Or you find somebody who's a terrible teacher, but, like it's vice versa. So you have somebody who could be a great like teacher, but a terrible horse trainer.
Yeah, horse trainers are just the contractors of the Western world. There's a flyer for one in every town.
Yep. And whether you
there's
know
10
you're
more
training or not, you are. Horses are listening. Monty Foreman used to say it. He goes, whether you know you're training them or not, they're listening. So if you know nothing, they're learning it, right? And so, but what you don't find is what I call the trifecta, which is someone who's a great horse trainer, a great teacher, and someone who's genuinely, legitimately your friend. I will stay up with a client in my PJs without a bra and powwow with them as long as it takes. I will sign every autograph. I will stay as late as I have to. I will like kiss babies and shake hands and do the whole deal because I love it. And my mom instilled that in us from a very young age because my mom would do whatever it took to get the job done. So thanks, Mom. Love you. She's kind of a badass. My mom, when they made her, they broke the mold, let me tell you, because she don't give she told this to everybody. I don't give a fat rat's ass who you are. I'm going to tell you when it's right and wrong, you know. And I love that about her. But the trifecta is something I work really hard at, that people think they know me, but if you just spend a little bit of time with me, I want to change your opinion about me because people don't really know who I am, you know? They see the idea.
Nobody knows any of us.
That's very true. That is very true.
No one lets themselves be known.
So that's why, is it scary for me to say, that's why I wanted to start the podcast, because I went, this scares the living shit out of me. And I'm scared because I don't want to lose people I love because of their guilt and shame and things they're worried about. But I also went, Wylene, you authentically have to be you.
So it's going to be a raunchy podcast?
It's going to be a lot of things. It's going to be me talking about plant medicine and how I stepped away and like did that and went and spent time with a shaman, why I did that, doing past life regressions.
Yeah, we were just talking about ayahuasca right before you opened the door.
I just did it.
Now that is funny. Riley, is that funny? Riley thinks it's funny.
Okay, so this is like, I just sat with grandmother ayahuasca about a month ago back down in, well, maybe I shouldn't say where, but it changed my life. I mean, you're looking at me, you can see it changed my life. It just changed my life. I lost my ego completely, complete death of my ego.
Everybody I've talked to who've done ayahuasca says the same thing. After you finish puking your guts out.
You know what all that is just the plant working through all the things that are toxic within your body. It is literally putrid stuff that is like an energy that's attached to you. So it's just releasing that. And I've never felt better. I've never been more clear about things. I've never been more at peace about things.
Did it stay?
Yeah, it's still like, I feel like the residual, any kind of plant medicine you do, the residual stays with you. And you see the world in a different way, through a different set of glasses, a different lens. And I think that's why I wanted to start the podcast, because when people go, "God, Wylene, you're so amazing. You've done so much." I'm like, well, it's been kind of a process, you know. It's like training a horse. I mean, you think you have it figured out day one, and then you're like, hey, 7 years later, look at this amazing.
This is what we need in this industry, though. We need honest authenticity, because
you.
people love the shit out of Joe Rogan for it. People love the hell out of all these people, but they don't want people to be that in this world for some reason. They just don't. And,
you're right. You are right.
They don't want it.
Because when I listen to you on the podcast, I'm like, you know what I like about Chance? He don't mess around. He just says it like it is, and I love that because that's who I am. But there's a delicacy to how you have to approach that. There's a fine line because people get their feelings hurt, and
you have to work into it
100%. And I think like even with like plant medicine stuff and stepping away and like being like, hey, I'm going to try this, because I was honestly seeking healing, and I wasn't finding it with a counselor. I wasn't finding it with a therapist. I wasn't finding it at church. And I was just so hungry. And I mean, I tell everybody that I did it, and I'm like, it changed my life because it allowed me to see life differently.
Yeah, but why not? Why? So you'll have anybody, including Catholics and Christians and whatever else, and there's no shame in going and getting on the antidepressants, lab-created medicine. There's no problem. Do that. In fact, here's the guy to get it from. So you'll go and you'll do all this, but as soon as someone says, hey,
you should try some cannabis or psilocybin or anything that has to do with plants.
You see something that's not, you see that thing, it grows from the ground. Yeah, don't touch that. In fact, hey, let me go ahead and make that illegal.
It's criminal.
Yeah, okay.
It's so terrible.
Right.
Yeah.
So now we're really having an intelligent conversation. Are we? Yeah. So you put,
it's all
no problem. Get all these different substances that are created in the lab. Take those. Those will fix you, except for the suicide rate goes up.
Yep. I'm with you 100%.
But not the plant medicines. Whether or not you want them or not, it's just like you would think that would be logical to not be too worried about
the mental health of our country is, we don't talk about things ever. And I know that there's a lot of people who wish they could say things that can't. That's what I'm here for. That's what you're here for. And after I experienced it, it was just mind blowing. And I mean, this has been going on a year. I've sat with other plant medicines, but life changing.
People
Beautiful.
They don't want to hear it. And some of my favorite cowboys, cowgirls, people you would never imagine. Man, they spark that shit up all day.
All the time, yeah. Oh, sure.
And you just don't know it because they're too ashamed to say it because they don't want to be judged by you and your grandfather.
So that was the other thing was I originally, when I was going to do it, this is so hard for me to even say out loud. This is so scary. I'm going to say it anyway. What I really wanted to name it was Confessions of a Cannabis Cowgirl, because I went growing up in high school and stuff, we used to smoke weed, however you want to say it, when we were younger. But I was pretty, tried to be pretty straight laced. And so I was not around it at all when I was, as I had a family and stuff. But then I broke my back in 2013, 12. And so I have some residual stuff from that. So anyway, we went to a dispensary up in Northern California with some clients, and I was like, people should actually walk into a dispensary and just talk to somebody. I was so I felt like a criminal. I was like, I'm going to prison.
No,
and I just
treat
wanted
you like you're buying a Porsche.
Yeah. They're like, what can we do for you? And I was like, I don't know, but I have some back pain, and can I get a topical? And so I just educated myself, and I had to release the shame that I think I felt, because I went, well, if it works, it's used like medicine. It's no different than a Vicodin. My goodness, So I love you all. If you hate me for that, it is who I am, and I'm not sad about it.
Wylene, I hate you, but I'm going to go pound this keystone until I pass the fuck out. I mean, that's
true.
The people.
And I've had my fair share of drinking, and it's funny because I go back and forth about things, but I spent some time with a really good friend of mine, and she told me there is a spirit of alcohol, and you have to be very careful about that intention. So if you're going to party with it, great, good for you. Just set your intentions with it. If you're sad or upset, you might not want to go down the alcohol route, because you open yourself up, and when you do that, it can be pretty dangerous. And so
not just for you, but for other people.
Absolutely.
It is true.
Yeah, and so I'm just happy we're talking about this. It's like
it shouldn't be a thing, and I mean we're so far. That's the one thing that I love about what I call the regular world, is they're so much more advanced in their thinking on this sort of thing than we are in our culture. The thing is it's happening here just like it does everywhere, sometimes more. But for whatever reason, we have this built-in processor in our head that has that chip removed. That piece of code's gone because it was just pushed inside of us that you don't do that stuff.
Yeah.
And it comes from the religious part
100%.
of our culture, because we're so parallel with the Christian faith. But find me somewhere where it says not to do it. I mean, it's just something that your granddaddy told your dad not to do, and your dad told you not to do. You don't really know why. And then you perpetuate that judgment.
It's so true.
But people can get shit-faced drunk and go and cheat on their wives at the rodeo,
that's okay.
Or beat someone's ass in the parking lot, or get their ass beat in the parking lot.
Right.
And just that's just Chuck.
Yeah, that's okay.
Okay, Chuck.
And see, that's why I wanted to start the Confessions of a Cowgirl, because I'm like, if you really want to know the truth about me as a cowgirl, that's just the beginning of who I am. That's not even close to who I am as a human and as a person and as a soul. That, I feel like I was put on this planet to do big things. And in the film Wild Horse, Wild Ride, I said I always knew I was destined for great things. I had no damn clue what it was. I just knew it was going to be big.
People think you're so weird, don't they?
Totally. And I love it. I'm like, yeah, I'm weird. You're welcome. And when I get sassy and spunky, and the more I tap into my true gift and the authentic version of myself, I am the funniest mother freaker out there. Like, I can make people laugh their asses off. I said it, Road to the Horse. I'm going to educate you. I'm going to entertain you, and I'm going to execute, and I'm going to get some shit done, because y'all need to see what it's supposed to look like, because it's possible. But everyone wants to whine and complain and be a pee pants about, like, oh, it shouldn't be this, it should be that, you should do this. And in Road to the Horse, while I was trotting my horse by after he bucked my ass off in front of a bazillion people, I went, well, you know, all those times I said I was going to shoulda, coulda, woulda at Road to the Horse, I said, well, I'm sitting in the saddle right now. Y'all, it's not what you think it is. Like, that's life. And no matter how much life, like, whips you back, freaking get your saddle and you put it right back on, and you get up and you ride. I don't care if you got broken legs. I think of, like, David Goggins. I'm like, who's gonna carry the ships, man?
Look at the way he gets judged. People call him phony. They call him annoying. Anybody who is so deep in their own authenticity is usually rejected by a lot of people who are not.
And, you know, there's a lot of haters out there and people that are really, that they say a lot of hurtful things. But you know what I've learned to do with that? It's just this. For all those people who hate me, they really hate themselves, and they wish they could be me. So they're going to scrutinize and say not like nasty things. But the truth is, it has nothing to do with me. You're just jealous, because I was always taught you only criticize those you feel inferior to. And if someone's saying something that's hurtful, they're saying that to themselves. I learned that a long time ago. And so I just focus on the positive and those people who love me that I can help. If I will give you the shirt off my back, I'll do anything. I'll spend hours with you.
You're talking about on social media mostly, right?
Yeah.
Never to your face, probably.
No.
Yeah.
Chicken shits, you know what I mean?
Well, yeah, social media is like gossip, right?
It's terrible.
Like you and me talking about Winda.
Yeah.
Like behind her back. You're doing that, but you're doing it behind your back. You just happen to see it. There's nothing there. Nobody ever says anything to your face. They wouldn't dare, because they couldn't look at an authentic person.
Yeah.
And then be authentic about their opinion. In fact, they would do the opposite. You say 2 or 3 things, they're going to agree. It's such a fun test. Have you ever done that with people? Like, if you ever purposely, this is something my sister and I talk about, we like to do, is we set people up. Because you know they did something really awful or said something really awful, and they were very inauthentic. And so you set them up to see,
and you're like, hey,
how they'll be, and they never are. And then you just keep that. You never tell them.
Well, and two, for me, something that I practiced when I was at Road to the Horse, I said, if somebody says something to me that's offensive, or they're, overly complimentary, or whatever it is, I would literally go, I release that. It's not mine. Like, I don't want it to stick to me. I used to take those bricks and stick them in my backpack and carry that shit around and be like, I'm going to hold all the world's problems. Now I'm like, I'm taking that off. Y'all can handle it. Get your own help. Figure yourself out. If you need me, I'll be here for you. But don't be an asshole. Like, don't be appreciative, because I want to help you. I'll do anything for anybody. But if you walk in and you're kind of, oh, I know everything, and I'm this and I'm that, I'm just like, I don't even know anything about horses, And I think I've been through this whole journey, and I go, I'm 42 years old, okay? I used to think I had it figured out in my 20s. I was like, I got life figured out. It's great. Then I got like Mustangs, and then it was like, I hit 30. I went through a divorce, did that. And then in my 30s, I'm like, I have it all figured out. Got remarried and married a wonderful guy. And we have a child together. So altogether, I have 3 children. My older 2, my daughter's in college. My son's a junior in high school. And then I have a 7-year-old. So there's a 10-year span. They're all awesome kids. I cannot tell you how many times people have told me I'm a terrible mother. What a piece of shit I am. And how dare I leave them? How dare I go on the road? How dare I? I will tell you, I just spent the last week with my daughter, and I didn't raise her. I didn't, because it's a long story, but through a court situation and a really bad accident she got in, that was all used against me in the court of law. And so I walked away from a lot of things I didn't want to walk away from. And at the time when that was happening, when I was going through so much turmoil in my life, I was like, I kept telling myself, this is temporary. One day it'll all be worth it. Every time I prayed and asked for an answer, I always got the answer to walk away. And I hated that answer. I was devastated. I was like, no, I don't want to walk. I just can't do this. I love my kids. And I was never going to win. And I knew that. And I was like, this is temporary. And so I stepped away. Now, interestingly enough, fast forward 10 years later, I have the most incredible relationship with my kids. They know who I am. And they're like, we love you. You're our hero. You had to do hard things. You walked away for a reason. We know why that is. You know what I mean? Like, they understand. And I think children are a lot smarter than we give them credit for. And I would say things like, I love my kids. They know that I'm doing the best I can. That's all you can do. There's no manual about how to raise children and how to be, the perfect family. There's no such thing. And I told him, I said, the biggest thing that you have to recognize in life is how to forgive and to let go, because you can harbor that stuff and it'll make you sick. It'll make you miserable. I just refuse to do it, at this point in my life, where I'm just ready to just make the world a better, happier place. And I feel like there's not enough being talked about. I think everybody sweeps everything under the rug, and there's a lot of fakeness in the world. And
the whole world is perpetuated on fakeness.
But don't you think
don't
that
buy into the fakeness, and the world stops? That's how it feels.
And I think
the opposite of the truth.
Right.
Obviously.
The positive side of things for me, even in winning and losing and everything in between, I've always just been grateful, because you know what? 1% of the world's population owns a horse. Did you know that? How grateful we should be for that. Like, how many other people wish they could even pet a horse, smell its breath, brush it off, get on it? How many people wish they could do that? So I never take that for granted. Like, I look at my friend, Amberly Schneider. I love her. Even through a massive accident like that, she's still riding. She's paralyzed. So horses, they're within us and we want them. They are healers. They help us. They help us to have an outlet from our crazy ass lives out there. They are our therapist. In my opinion, they are a reflection of us. They mirror everything we have going on in our lives. And I started to say, like, what does my horse say about me? If my horse could talk, what would he say about me? And that really changed my trajectory of how I did things, And a lot of things changed in my life because of that. Because I got humble, and at least I could admit that. And I can say, hey, I'm sorry. I'm sorry if I ever hurt you. I'm sorry if I said something or did something that you weren't okay with. I apologize. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. It was that kind of so when I did ayahuasca, when I sat with ayahuasca, I did a lot of apologizing and a lot of saying, please forgive me. Another Cowgirl Confession is I was at a very young age sexually molested from 5 years, from 5 years old till I was 12. And a lot of people don't know that, but it was something I started to speak out on, because I think a lot of women, it's happened to a lot, men and women. I've had men come forward and be like, thank you so much for sharing your story. And I started to talk about what that did to me as a child and how it really, can you imagine going through that and then being in a religious family and then pretending everything's fine but you're not fine. And the shame that you carry, the sexual shame that you carry from that, you're never the same, And so I think it's important to speak out about it. And I think it's important to be able to allow horses to give us that soft cushion to land on. I think that's why a lot of people get involved with horses, is because of trauma. Now, it might not be sexual, but it could be mental, verbal, physical abuse, PTSD, you name it. And whether you're a child or a woman or a soldier, I want to help you. And I think the reason that I signed up for this life and went through all this crazy shit is because I'm a badass warrior chick, and I've turned my tears into war paint, and I want to rise up and be like, you know what? Life's hard. Yeah, you're right. It's a tough race, but stand up, get on, go. And at Road to the Horse, I just never stopped. And I went, this is my message. This entire messy weekend with all this stuff I thought was going to happen that didn't, it was the most beautiful thing. I did walk away feeling like a champion. It wasn't about the title. It was about all those people that walked up to me afterwards and were like, how did you do that? With tears in their eyes. And I'm like, I don't even know. I have no idea. And I was so grateful for the opportunity to do it. And I was so grateful for that platform. And I wouldn't have changed one thing, truly. I asked for my life to change, and it by damn did. And I was ready. And then so after that happened, when I left the arena, I had been standing on that number 10 obstacle, and I had 30 seconds left. And I remember being like, I cannot believe I accomplished this. Holy freaking crap, I actually did this. Nobody else probably could have ever rode that horse. He was so fractious and weird and goofy. And I could feel him, he was tight like a ticking time bomb. So I ride out of the arena. I go do 2 interviews with Western Horsemen and Road to the Horse. I come around the corner, and there's my husband, Randall, at the time. And I'm like, and he's just bawling his eyes out. And I'm like, what's wrong? And he's like, I'm so sorry. And he just kept apologizing. I'm like, what are you sorry for? I don't understand. And, and he's like, He's like, I took your rope off your saddle. So that's the reason I didn't have my rope on my saddle. And it wasn't, don't freak out, everybody. I love you, Randall. It's okay. It wasn't intentional. What it was is he was organizing all my stuff. They started pulling stuff into the arena. The rope just got left behind. It was not intentional. And I said to him in that moment, I said, what if that happened for a reason? What if you were doing me a favor? What if I would have roped him and he would have broke a leg or jumped out of the round pen? He was that goofy that day. I looked at that as a divine timing. I was grateful. That was what was supposed to happen. And while we were talking, I made myself a promise that weekend. I said, those who are with me will rise up and celebrate. Those who are not will fall away. And that weekend, Randall and I, we split up that weekend. And it wasn't ugly. It was just like an understanding of, we're not on the same page. We love each other. We just don't want to be married. And it had kind of been an ongoing thing. And that was something that I think I had always like wanted to kind of step away from it. But we have a child and I wanted to be a great wife and I wanted to be these things, but I couldn't offer him what he wanted. And so at Road to the Horse, mind you, everything falls apart. Then I have this conversation with my husband at the time and we just sit down and I was like, look, you didn't do anything. He was like, I ruined your career, Wylene. I'm so sorry. It's all my fault. And I went, what you don't realize is you didn't do anything to my career. If anything, you boosted it. It's okay. It's okay. It's all right. He was like really beating himself up. And I said, everything you're saying has what's going on with you. And he did not like that answer.
People hate that answer.
I hated saying that, but I also, it was necessary. It was hard for me. That conflict and being able to communicate it was really difficult. And so we sat down afterwards and he was like, I love you. And it was just like, we don't want to be married anymore. And it's okay. We are the best of friends and we are awesome co-parents. We have an awesome son and I'm so proud of that. And if I had to go to Road to the Horse just to unravel it, to build it back up, I'm so glad I did. Like, I didn't know that that's why I went there. Again, in hindsight, I look back and I'm like, oh, I thought I was just going to go in there and win the show, and oh no. All hell broke loose at the luau. I mean, it was like everything fell apart, but it had to fall apart. It was time. I asked for it. And I wanted to be the example. I wanted to watch Wylene go through something that's detrimental, like all of it, from losing a relationship to losing the competition to just all of it. But I remember standing in that arena and I just went, Wylene, this is your TED Talk. Everyone needs to push through. When things get hard, it's life. Things are temporary. Take a deep breath, go, okay, what do I need to do? What are the next steps? And then get on with it. And you can stay in that state of like sadness or depression or whatever you want to, but just don't be there forever. Like give yourself a day or whatever, give yourself some time, but then move on. And so I did. I sat down and I looked at my life in a very hard way. And I went, get really fucking honest with yourself, Wylene. You're not happy in your relationships. You're not happy in your finances. You're not happy with your, where your business is going. What do you want to change? So I sat down with myself and it was really hard to get transparent. Sat down with one of my best friends and we powwowed one night and I said, I want to buy a new truck and trailer. I want to make X amount of money. I want to do this. I want to start a podcast. Like I just started saying what I wanted to do. And everything I put on that paper, not only did I do it, I paid off all of my debt in 3 months because I hit the ground running. And because of Road to the Horse, when people watched what I did, they were like, I want you to come to my facility, or can you come work with us? Can you give us a clinic? So in a weekend, I was booked for a year. So I took that as initiative to go, all right, the life you thought you had and wanted is no longer there. The rug's been ripped out from underneath you. You're not in a relationship with Randall. You're not doing the things you thought you were going to do. You didn't win Road to the Horse. What do you do with yourself? And so I decided to change it, and I did. And when I stepped into that uncharted territory, it was like, holy freaking crap. This is the life I've always wanted to live, even though I was terrified to do it. So this is me speaking my truth and saying, anything's possible, but you're accountable and no one's coming to save you. You're your own guru. You're your own fixer. You're the best. You got to be the best version of you can be. My goal is always just be better than yesterday, Wylene. And I don't live in the past. I live right now because today's the day you create in the present moment. I have a shirt that says, tell fear to buck off. And I am a firm believer that fear is the one thing that takes us away from all of that glory and amazing, crazy, cool things we could experience because we live in a box of fear. And I just want to fear bust up everything. I'm like, if you're having fun, you're not having fear. So I try to create fun for people. I want people laughing and learning and engaged where they're just like, Wylene came into town and it was like 4th of July. Like, I want people going, I need to be more like that. I want to drive a little harder. I want to spin those wheels. I want to do more. I want to push myself. People have come to me and been like, you trained a Mustang? By damn, I'm going to train a Mustang. If I made that for somebody, I am so grateful because I could die tomorrow. What would people say that I brought to their life? I hope it's something of positivity, truly.
I think it will be.
Thank
I'm
you.
going to listen to it, even though it's not for cowboys, it's for cowgirls.
What are you talking about? It's
That's
totally
so sexist.
Well, can you come be on the show?
Will I be a guest?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's going to be in my truck because I don't have a studio. I'm not cool like you, but
I'm not that cool.
yes, you know, it's fine. I started to say, hey, the life and the woman you've always wanted to be, just be her now. It's not someday. It's right damn now. So for those of you who are listening, just do it. Tony Robbins says, it takes a moment in time. It's not a minute. It's not a day. It's not an hour. It's not a month. It's not a year. One moment you decide, boom, I'm changing my life. I'm getting married. I'm getting divorced. I'm getting a new job. I'm starting over. It is one moment. That moment for me was at Road to the Horse. Once I sat back and looked at the situation, I was like, this is your chance, Wylene. This is your TED Talk. You asked for it. You wanted your life to change. Here it is. It didn't show up the way you wanted. What are you going to do with that golden opportunity? And so from a year ago till now, because Road to the Horse, I'm leaving tomorrow to go to the show. And I'm so proud of not only myself and my family, but my team and the things that we've wanted to do for this planet and to help people with horses. And I've always wanted to do women's retreats, kids camps. I teach boot camps anyway. And when I say boot camps, I mean, that's mainly for horses, but I've always wanted to create a retreat style, women's empowerment. Let me elevate your horsemanship, but it's lifemanship, truly. The horse part of it's easy. It's how are you conducting yourself in your daily life? And are you proud of yourself of where you've been and what you're doing? And so I started saying, like, I'm going to build a badass community of people who are on the path of changing and healing. And that looks ugly sometimes, but I want to set that nest, that container, that protection for people. I have no judgment. In my world, I will not judge you. I will just love you. Ayahuasca brought that to me. Truly, I cannot judge people. I literally am like, I love you. The only thing I can share or give is love. It's the only thing that never changes and never dies.
Boom.
Boom.
See?
Mic drop. Just kidding.
And this is what I want. I want
this
these
is what I want.
influential people from the Western world to inspire everybody. Tony Robbins can inspire a cowboy.
I just want to be the
or
Tony
any other
Robbins of the
person.
equine world.
Or really anybody, right? Any of these
The white
big time
Oprah.
people. Yeah, the white Oprah. That's right.
I've been saying that for
So you're
20
telling me there's a free car down there?
Sure.
For all of us.
Everybody gets the truck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We really need them right now. We just can't afford to fuel them.
I mean, I know.
It's crazy. But
Horsepower.
this is the whole point of the gauge, and I'm so glad that you came. I'm so glad of the whole manifestation thing, and we got other stuff we could talk about. I'm just not going to talk about it on this show, but I'll talk about it on your show.
Yeah, I'd love that. I would
definitely
totally love
will.
that. And thank you for giving me this opportunity because it's weird. I have this firm belief. Can I just say what it is? This is my belief. My belief is that your angels did lunch with my angels and they decided we needed to meet. I think that there's an orchestrating, working system that goes on that we don't see. But there's a thought that you have like, oh, I'm looking for influential people and I'm looking for platforms and I'm trying to network with people who are like-minded. And I'm seeking that out. And I've been manifesting and calling that back to me, almost like calling my crew back to me, all my people that I love and people that I know like align with where I am. And that's why you and I have like a connection because we're just both on the same page. We're trying to do what's right to help educate, open up the door that people don't want to talk about. That's like the no closet. Don't go in there. I'm like, let's bust that sucker down.
I just want authenticity.
Thank you. So
across
do
the
I.
board because I grew up living an inauthentic life.
Yeah.
Just like you did.
Yeah.
And it's the worst thing for a human being. There's
Yeah.
nothing worse for anybody. Doesn't matter what you're doing. It doesn't have anything to do with horses. If you're not being authentic in your life and who you are, you're literally wasting the greatest gift that we all have. Which
so
is just
true.
life. And it's sad. And I started the show. We're like 130 episodes, 140. I don't even know. It's been 2 years of this. And I started the show wanting it just to be a ha-ha funny, like bring on people like Amber Lee Snyder. We goofed off about freaking chips. What a waste of freaking time. Now she has to come back on so we can talk some authentic stuff. Really what it was is you come here to get what you're not expecting to get, but we're in a different time now. Yeah. And we did that. And now it's time to try to offer as much value that for people, for our people.
Absolutely.
Because people will go and seek it why can't they get it here? Why can't it be in our own culture?
And you know what? I'm a firm believer. I want everyone to succeed. There's enough for everybody. I'm going to help the rising rise. I don't think I'm better than anyone. I really don't. I try to stay really humble and be like, look, I'm still learning. Like there's a lot I don't know. And I think that when someone's up and coming, if they're humble, I'll teach them everything I know. I'll do anything for anybody. I always want to help anybody that I can that's open to listening. And we got to do a lot more of that in the world. And
we need openness.
I try to think of 10 things that I love about somebody before they say hello to me. And I can see the beauty in them that they can't see. But why aren't we doing that for ourselves? Why aren't we waking up in the morning and going, you know what? You're a rock star and you did great things today. You gave birth to 3 kids naturally and you're kind of a badass. You also and I just sit there and go like, all the things that people don't know about me, the struggles that I've been through. The book that I'm writing is called A Million Miles, A Million Smiles, and All the Tears in Between. Because that's what it's been. 1,000,000 fucking miles and 1,000,000 fucking smiles. And I've laughed and loved it and cried and experienced and shared and lost people and situations. And I've grown and learned. And I'm not perfect. I know that there's things that I wish I could do better. A book that really helped me, it just popped in my mind, is Mary Magdalene Revealed. It was her gospel. And she said it was the Christianity we should have been practicing. And in her gospel, she says, and maybe it's Jesus.
I didn't even know that existed.
Oh, buckle up, sweetheart. Just go get you that audiobook and have yourself a day with her. Holy macaroni. Okay, in there she says there's no such thing as sin.
Mary Magdalene wrote the book herself and it got translated?
No, Mary Magdalene had books that were, this one theologist was like, I'm going to prove, she's like, I'm an atheist. I want to prove that God's not real. Da, 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 da. So she waltzes her way over to this school somewhere and she says, I'm here to prove all this. And so as she gets diving into like the archives and stuff, she stumbles upon these books that Mary Magdalene, like her gospel. Wow. And interestingly enough, this is weird. Like, so you don't know about this, so we don't hear about it.
I have no idea.
There were 3 pages missing in the beginning of each of the books that were found, that were recovered. All 3 were missing. 3 pages in the front part of the book, 7 pages in the middle. So there was something that she said that men did not want to see the light of day.
I bet they didn't, especially back then.
So when I stepped away from organized religion, I kind of started saying like, I want to find things that speak truth to me. And I think there's a place for religion. I don't want to discount that. I'm not trying to be ugly or talk bad about it. It's just, it doesn't align with where I am because I'm seeking other things. But in her gospel, she says, there's no such thing as sin. You simply just missed the mark. So redraw your arrow and aim again. When I changed my mindset from that versus feeling like a sinner every day and being like, I'm a piece of shit, I'm going to hell. When I shifted that to, I just missed the mark. Redraw your arrow. Try again. Wylene, it's okay. Forgive yourself. It's okay. We're on this earth to learn and to grow and to evolve and to ascend and to build our soul. Like if you think about the things in life that just make you like, yes, what is that for you? Like, what is it? Like for me, when an American flag goes around an arena, I lose my shit. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so grateful. I live in this amazing country and I love horses and I love the patriotic side of things and I love rodeo. That gets me fired up. Anytime I see anything that's patriotic, that's what works for me. But then again, I love watching a baby laugh, or watching a foal be born, or watching a Mustang get its first ride. I want those things that just turn me on so much that I want to share that with other people. Because all the shit that we're focusing on social media and all like pointing fingers and trying to be better than everybody else, why aren't we helping each other? And so...
Because I'll answer that question. Is a question. You just weren't looking for an answer.
No, just go.
People don't want to because they think it might dim their light.
Oh, I know, but...
That's just the way it is. Everybody's so wrapped up in themselves because we have this whole universe inside of us. That's why I think a lot of the stuff in the Bible is actually talking about the internals of a human being.
100%.
Most of that is everything's inside of us.
You're just speaking my language. Like, I get it. Like,
I've read the Bible. I went to Christian schools, got kicked out of them, but I did go for a little bit. And
You're the black sheep. I've always.
Yeah,
there's a picture of my brother and I hiding in a tree. I'm in like a dress, and my mom's going, Wylene, wait, it's time for church. And I'm like, well, church is going to start without us. Like, I just remember always having a tough time fitting into that mold. And I think through the years of all the things I've done, I'm just so happy and grateful that, and I have a lot of amazing memories from all those times. And I'm also seeking out truth now. And when my dad passed away, he came through in a reading one time, and he said, hey, Wylene, thanks for becoming closer. And I was like, what does that mean? And he's like, to everything that's connected, all of it, to God, which some people look at God a different way. Like we were always raised to believe like it's a heavenly Father, but I just look at it as there's like a creation that we can't even encapsulate it all. We don't know.
You can't understand it. And that's the issue I have when people try to tell you about it. It's like, no. What you're saying about God is the most egotistical thing you could say about something you could never understand.
Right. And
it's so simple. It's almost embarrassing for a Christian if you really look at what you're saying. It doesn't make sense.
And when it comes down to it, can't we just be good people? Like just be nice. Try to do a good thing for someone and recognize people when they're in their trauma. And the last thing you want to be is kicked when you're down. And I think that there's not enough love and support in the world, not enough forgiveness. And what I was about to say earlier, and I know we get bouncing around, but when I did ayahuasca, like this is how powerful it was. I sat with my mother when I was 5 years old, but she was 5 years old. Like I was in this place where I could like tap into another timeline. I sat with my mother. I thanked her. As a 5-year-old, she lost her dad when she was 8 years old. He was electrocuted in front of her on Easter Day. Like, imagine being a little girl and watching your dad, like, be electrocuted right in front of you. I don't know what that was like for her. My mom's an extraordinary woman. She's powerful. My grandmother was a powerful woman. The Wilson sisters come from a long line of tough-ass women, and I'm very grateful for that. And I sat with my mom, but I also sat with my husband and my other husband. When we were 5, I sat with my children, and I started to say, please forgive me. I'm sorry. I was learning. I wasn't perfect. I was trying to do all the right things, and I really screwed up because I was really hard on myself, and I meant well. Please know it came from here. Just trust me that it was good. And I also, forgave the people who hurt me sexually, took my innocence from me. I could see them for the innocent children they were. Something obviously happened to them for them to make me the victim of their victimization. And so we're all born innocent children. So what happened to us in between that time? And I learned to stop judging because you don't know where someone's been. You just don't. And I learned to wrap my arms around people and go, I love you and it's okay. And I'm sorry that you went through those hard things. And I think that that's why I went through all these things, because I can relate to everyone. And I have no judgment. I just have love. That's all that's left. That's all I can have. That's all I want to have.
I think that's the best spot we could possibly end the podcast, because those are powerful words.
Thank you.
And I appreciate you coming on here. There was a long time in my life where I wouldn't have even a year and a half go on this podcast where I wouldn't go this direction on the gauge because of what it is.
Me too.
But
yeah,
fuck that. Let's go.
Just saddle them up. Let's
That's
go.
right.
Ride that bronc.
Well, I'm so glad you're here. I can't wait to see
Chance.
what else you do. And
Thank you.
I think everybody's going to get something meaningful out of this, which is the whole point of us sitting here.
Thank you. That's always the goal, is to just leave the world better than I found it. Help people. Just help people. Whatever that is. You name it, I've done it. Whatever I can do. And I'm not perfect. I know that. So I just work to be better every day. And then it's not my gift to keep. It's my gift to share. So whatever that looks like, I think documenting everything that you go through on a daily basis, I think sometimes that's really important, because we evolve and change.
People have done that for thousands of years. It was the most powerful thing they could do. We've just lost it because we're so fixated on
oh my gosh,
photos
totally
and
totally
filters and completely not representing who we actually are. We're fixated on that because somebody wants us to be fixated on that.
And when you're saying that, I hear what you're saying, and I realized I can feel that in my heart. See, that's my whole soul's yes. That's the juice I'm seeking. I'm yes, I'm seeking truth. So now as an adult, I allow my heart to lead me. I just go, what does my heart tell me? I want to be where I'm needed. What do I do? put me in the path. I call on it. I ask my angels to orchestrate my day. I thank them for the joy, love, and abundance that finds me every day. Thank you for letting it find me. I'm so grateful. And I wake up every morning and I don't touch my phone. I just sit in silence and in gratitude.
That's so hard.
I decided to change it. I went, why does social media matter? What am I learning from that? Am I learning anything? I wasn't learning. I wasn't growing. And I had to step away from the drama and the trauma and people's projections. And I realized how empathic I was. And so I had to take a step back and go, thank you for my body. Thank you for my breath. When you start to simplify and go back to just bare bones, if we don't breathe, we don't live. So every day, the breath that we carry is our life. And I never want to forget my breath. And I learned that horses have taught me breath is so vital. Because when a horse changes their breath, they change their mind. When we change our breath, we change our mind. And so it's just channeling that and like tapping into literally the universe, like you said, that's within us. I get all fired up about that kind of stuff. Like, how do we access that? And that's why I love like Dr. Joe Dispenza and like the power of your mind. And there's so many things that I love and I could go on and on and on about.
Obviously, we'll do another podcast sometime.
We have to, because
we'll do
I'm like, this is not over. Like, we can just chitty chat forever.
It's never over.
Okay.
But boom.
Boom. Go. They're going to be sad.
They are.
They are so
People
sad.
are going to be wanting more of that. Well, I got to pee before we talk anymore.
Pee. Pee it out. Right, Jessica? You're not crying over there, are you? Okay, don't cry. Unless you have to. I always make her cry. It's a thing. Wait, are we still filming?
Yes. I am still going.
Oh, okay. Well, you know what? You're welcome, everybody. I feel really sweaty all of a sudden, like, wee, because I'm so happy and I love life and I just get so excited about things.
This has been The Gauge, hosted by me, Chance Conrado, produced and edited by our guy, Ty Yeager. Shout out to the executive producers, Dustin Pointer and Cody Denton. Marketing and content produced by Riley Chone. Make sure to rate and review this podcast, as well as follow The Gauge on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And make sure to subscribe to The Gauge wherever you get your podcasts. We'll see you guys next time.